My guest today knows all about how to warm up prospects using content. She's going to tell us why content marketing is essential for every MSP, what the different types of content are that you need at every stage of the lead to client process, and why marketing is overwhelming for so many MSPs, plus where you can get started. Hey, I'm Paul Green from the MSP Marketing Edge, the leading white label content marketing system that's trusted by more than 700 MSPs around the world. Check if your area is available now at mspmarketingedge.com. Today's big interview is with an MSP marketing expert who knows the huge power of marketing content.
Hi, I'm Ruthie Starrett, marketing strategist and founder of The Consistency Corner.
And thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, Ruthie. We are going to be talking about content today and how any MSP can use content strategically to build relationships with prospects and be there right in front of the right person at the right time with the right message, just using content. It is still, even now in 2024, one of the most powerful tools that you can use. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's first of all learn about you. Tell us who you are and how you came to work with MSPs, helping them with their marketing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm a marketing strategist and founder of the Consistency Corner marketing agency, which helps CEOs take off the marketing hat and get back to serving their clients and leading their team as they scale their business. And the thing about content, I'm a strategic thinker naturally. I love to see the big picture and the pieces and parts, and content is really a tool that we can use to build relationships, to build trust, which is what leads to sales. And I've got a background actually in sales. Although I'm a self-taught marketer, I do have a background in sales. And what I found is that many CEOs did not start their business to be a content creator. They were like, oh my gosh, I do not want to be on this hamster wheel. I don't want to be an influencer. Why do I have to create all this content? And so we find ways to help them create content and use content strategically in their marketing to get to their business results, not just to be an influencer or a content creator.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. It's one of the, well, I think for many MSPs, doing any marketing is a distress, but especially content creation. And of course, we are in a position where, in theory, ChatGPT can generate a whole ton of content for you. We all know there are lots of issues with that. It talks a bit weird. Some of the references it makes and the facts that it churns out aren't quite right. But yeah, I believe very much in content. I spend a great deal of my time, and obviously I'm a marketer, so I enjoy it. And I was a writer. I was a journalist before I did this. I spend a lot of time creating content, but I know it sucks up hours and hours and hours of your time. So if you're going to do it, you should do it for a strategic purpose. What are some of the big content mistakes that you see MSP owners making?
Well, I'm glad you referenced ChatGPT because that's a big mistake right there of relying on AI alone. And listen, AI can absolutely help us with a lot of things, but it typically takes really being dialed in on our messaging, on our point of view, on what makes us unique, on who our ideal client is and what their problems are. And that's actually a mistake that I see a lot of service providers and MSPs making, is that when they're creating content, they're not putting themselves always in the seat of their client. They're thinking about what their problems are. They're thinking about the problems in their industry, but not the problems that their client is trying to solve. And that's what your content is there to do, to show your ideal client, to show your audience that you get them, that you understand what they're going through, and that you have a solution to help those things. And if we go to AI without that unique perspective and point of view and real deep understanding of our clients and what makes us unique, AI is just going to give you a bunch of garbage, which is what they're giving everybody else. And it becomes this sea of terrible content that everybody's over. I mean, I'll tell you, pro tip right now, stop using the rocket emoji. If AI gives you the rocket emoji, delete it immediately because that's a big tell. But I think the biggest thing is going back to truly understanding your ideal client, understanding their problems and how you can serve them uniquely with your unique perspective and point of view.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where you're talking about using content in a strategic way. So talk us through what would you recommend? So if we take an average MSP, might be someone listening to this right now, and let's say they're sort of a 3, 4, maybe 5-person business. Most of those are techs. So you've got the owner, you've got some techs they've added on, maybe a bit of customer service, but there's not a great deal of actual marketing happening? There's lots of referrals coming to the business. Maybe those are starting to dry up. The owner's starting to think about marketing more seriously, and they're hearing, content is part of it. What kind of strategic approach would you have to that kind of situation using content?
Yeah, the simplest way I can break it down, and I'm going to be honest, it's not simple. There is not an easy button. There is not a shiny object, even though everybody on the internet is going to try to sell you one. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But if we're going to simplify it, the one piece of advice that I want you to understand is that your marketing platforms, the channels that you're using, whether it's social media, whether it's email, whether it's long form content, whether it's paid advertising, even your referrals, those different containers and different content pieces are all going to have different jobs. And you're looking for them to have the jobs of attracting new eyes to your business, which is top of funnel awareness, nurturing those existing audiences and existing relationships, which is middle of funnel, or converting, asking for the sale, asking for someone to join your email list, asking for someone to follow you, which is the convert. And no one single piece of content can do all three of those things. So when somebody puts up a piece of content and they're like, well, that didn't work. Well, what was the intent of that piece of content? Were we trying to attract? Were we trying to nurture? Were we trying to convert? So we're looking at different metrics and measuring different things. And, I love to work with CEOs and be their strategic partner to say, where are we attracting? Where are we nurturing? Where are we converting? And making sure that we're checking all of those boxes, because most people tend to do too much of one and not enough of the other two. And then how can we do it in a way that you can be strategic, again, and consistent? Because it's the compound effect of doing those things consistently that is actually going to get you results over time.
So thinking strategically, where would you get started? You've got those three distinctive phases there. Do you literally start at the beginning and create content for that first phase, or do you sprinkle a little bit into all three phases and then go back and add some more and add some more and add some more?
Yeah, well, it's different for every business. And I know that's every marketer's favorite answer is it depends, but it really does depend. And, we can't compare your chapter 10 to somebody else's chapter 75. So we've got to look and see where your business is today. And so I'm going to do a marketing audit. We're going to look at what content you already have out there. If you have zero, if you have literally been word of mouth only, the first thing we're going to do is social media, because that's a quick win. We can get you started on social media. We can start testing content by putting things out there and see what your existing audience is resonating with. And then from there, we can layer on other things. With my clients, I kind of have a baseline non-negotiable that we're going to leverage social media, email marketing, and long form content. And the reason that we choose those three is long form content, like a podcast, has SEO value. You can repurpose the content into so many places, and you can go back to it and reference it over and over again in your customer's life cycle, and you own it. Social media you don't own, but people are on social media. 3 billion people, if not 4 billion at this point, use social media. So your clients are there. So you want to make sure that your business has a professional presence that represents what you do, how you help people, the problems that you solve, and that we want to be strategic with our social media content there. And then again, email marketing, because you don't own social media. So if you want to communicate with your audience, we've got to have a strategic email plan so that we can engage with them and converse with them on a platform that you actually own.
Yeah. Do you find that, because obviously for you and me, this stuff sounds really simple, but this is what we do. In the same way for an MSP, talking about a server migration sounds really simple, but for you and me, our heads would literally explode, right? Because there's too many moving parts to it. So when you've got that kind of overwhelm, what do you believe is the first easiest natural step for someone to start down that strategic content route?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say if I had to pick one, I would start with social media, because it gives you an opportunity to test your messaging. And what I always tell my clients is, in the beginning, when you're getting started, bad content or even okay content is better than no content. because the more you create content, the better you're going to get at getting your message out there. And if you're in a position that you can outsource and you can bring on a marketing partner, even you just talking about it and spitballing. My favorite thing to do is just listen to my client talk in a strategy session, because I'm writing down hundreds of ideas for their content just based on their own unique point of view and their own unique perspective. So getting started with social media, pick one platform where your audience is going to be and get consistent there with your messaging. And then we can start to layer in the other pieces and parts. And I see a lot of clients do this, particularly if they think they're going to get scrappy and do it on their own, or they're going to have somebody on their team take them and do the content for them. They try to do way too much too fast. And I'd rather you do less consistently than do more and burn out. And consistent doesn't have to mean constant. Let's take email, for example. If you've been building an email list, you have a small email list of maybe people you've worked with in the past or a couple of referrals, and you say, okay, Ruthie, I hear you. I should be emailing. I'm going to start sending a weekly email newsletter. And every single client I've ever worked with that said that, we get through the first month and I say, well, how does your email going? And they're like, I've sent 0. So instead of saying we're going to send one every week, let's start with one a month. Let's start with one, and then we can go 3 months. And if we've sent 3, now maybe we can do 2 a month. And we can ease into that versus trying to do all the things all the time and not doing any of them very well.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Something you said about 60 seconds ago was about picking a platform. For MSPs, it's LinkedIn. It is the number one platform. It's, of course you could use Facebook. You could use Instagram if you're trying to reach businesses that use Instagram in their own marketing, like restaurants, hotels. But I've got to be honest, you as an MSP, you put 60, 90 minutes a day into LinkedIn and it will pay back, because that's where your prospects are.
Yeah. And let's talk about LinkedIn. Well, with LinkedIn, the difference between the strategy of your company's page and your personal profile, because different pieces of content are going to work differently there. Your personal profile, where you're being positioned as a thought leader, as a trusted source in the industry, you're going to put different content on that versus your company profile. But if you as a thought leader have grown your team and you've got other technicians, we've got to also make sure that we're building authority for the company profile by having strategic content on that page as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. Personally, I think MSPs should focus just on their personal profile. When do you see company pages come up in your newsfeed in LinkedIn? These days you don't so much. But you're right, you need to have both of those things. And
that's an interesting question. And I will even say, as a LinkedIn user, I was having a conversation with my husband the other day, and he's a general contractor. And I was talking to him about LinkedIn, and I said, well, who do you follow? Who are the thought leaders in your industry? And he said, I don't follow people. I follow companies because I want to see what other companies are doing. And so I thought that was really interesting to hear that that's where he's consuming content. And so even have conversations with your customers. If you have existing customers, ask them, who do you follow? What do you like? What type of content are you consuming? Because that can give you great insight to what potential customers might be doing and where you should be showing up.
Yeah, that's a really, really good idea. Thank you, Ruthie. We'll take that. And I have to say, what exciting evenings you and your husband must have sitting talking about LinkedIn. Oh, my goodness.
Yes, absolutely. Like you said, we're marketers. We can talk about this stuff all day long.
Exactly.
I try to talk to him about funnels, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, when you talk about HVAC systems, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, let's just put Netflix on instead. It's a lot easier. Ruthie, thank you for your time. Tell us what you do to help MSPs and what's the best way to get in touch with you.
Yeah, so I help create that strategic marketing plan. My agency, we have a CMO strategy plus implementation package where I'm going to sit with you and we're going to map out, we're going to figure out where you are today and where you need to be attracting, nurturing, and converting. And we can either create that plan, hand it over to you to do on your own and, built for your bandwidth, or my team can do it for you. And we can implement that plan so that you don't have to think about marketing other than those strategy sessions with me once a month. So if you're interested in learning more, you can head over to theconsistencycorner.com. You can book a free CMO consult. We can have a conversation to figure out how to get you to that next phase of growth.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Edge.